Hello and welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue with the characters day 5. They are resting in the Green Dragon Inn. It's the afternoon of the Friday. They have gone through their list of potions. They've been doing some sampling, quite enjoying the different flavors on offer. Certainly with a sense of trepidation that they're not quite sure exactly what they are imbibing. Had a bit of a laugh with the speed potion, with Dagobert speaking in a as if he was taking helium. They do have one question mark left at the end of that process. They couldn't quite figure out what the longevity potion was. So they have come to the conclusion that they need to pursue a line of inquiry as to what this particular potion, what its properties are, and what it can give to the user. I would say that on their review of these particular potions, they have decided that in terms of keeping some and discarding, they have decided to get rid of levitation, sell it, sell speed, and sell the love potion. So that is going to be, if they can get full market value, that is going to be 400 plus 450 plus 300. So 11,500 gold pieces, which is quite a nice tidy sum. Now that's based on getting the full whack. The other thing, and basically I think the plan is they're not really going to do anything more today, because it's already starting to become a bit late. They are very tired after having quite an exciting morning, and they feel that they probably just need to have some genuine R&R. Take in a bit of Rowena tonight, and maybe not go at such a frenetic pace. Enjoy those 100 gold pieces that they have given to Fredigar, and see what kind of return they can get for their investment. However, they have a strategy for tomorrow. So that'll be the Saturday, day 6, and what they plan to do is take these items, the 3 potions, and the fire beetle glands, which they already have in a sack. Take them, and they're still glowing away. And what we can do is when we come to do the sale, we can just do a D6 and see, work backwards, see how many days of charge they have left. We're going to take these to the artisan quarter tomorrow. We're going to approach Thudibert in his emporium, and we're going to see whether we can strike a deal with him. He is the purveyor of everything, so there is a very good chance that he would be interested in magic items, particularly if we can describe and explain exactly what the properties are, and we have a general idea of what their value is. Okay, so that is the plan for those items. For the remaining longevity potion, and also the sword, the +2 sword. Now, we don't really know the exact properties of our sword. So in terms of the sword and the potion, we are going to seek out the aid of our patron, Jasper. So on the back of seeing Thudibert tomorrow, we are going to go and call on Jasper, maybe give him a bit of an update on just how we've got on. He'll obviously, maybe he might be interested just to see how his young apprentices are getting on, and see whether he can give us access to Seward's mage, his wizard, and also his weaponsmith. Now we know that there is no alchemist in Marchton. There is no, as far as we are aware, there is no resident magic user, and also there is no weaponsmith that we've already generated. So we are relying on what Seward has in his retinue, and it's a case of really asking Jasper, who can he help us gain access to those individuals. With the weaponsmith, he should be able to form some form of process on the sword. Maybe do, I don't know exactly what the ceremony would be, or the process, or whatever you want to call it. He should be able to decipher the runes, and maybe through some form of innate ability, coupled with a supernatural element, he might be able to discern what its origin is and exactly what the properties are that it can give to us. And so they're agreed on that process, and on the actual longevity potion, which we have a vague inkling that it has something to do with the life force, but we're not entirely sure exactly what the effects are. We will likewise ask Jasper whether he can point us in the right direction, and see if there's a magic user of, I suppose, ability enough to recognize what this potion is. I think when it actually comes to the creation of potions, you need a level 7+. I think I read in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but I'd have to go back and check that. Okay. The other thing was the actual coinage that we have. Now, obviously, we've left all these silver pieces back in the Lost Palace. So that's always there as a kind of a backstop if we feel that it is worth our time and investment to return to the Dunborner. We've got 3,000 silver pieces. The problem is trying to extract that amount of money. The actual place of mystery itself it's not inaccessible in terms of it's not very far away from Marchton, but it is difficult in terms of gaining access, because you have to cope with the crevasse or the sinkhole. So either way, it involves a bit of navigation. That being said, Tristan is a strong individual. He can carry a lot. So if we go back with just say the purpose of retrieving that treasure, we could travel fast and light, and he could basically carry maybe a chest of stuff, of silver pieces out. So that is always something that we can fall back on. The other thing that I found out when I was doing a bit of research on the money changing side, I think I'd said something about 1% as being the cost of money changing, but the player handbook has spoken, and it has said something slightly different. So we have money changing, banks, loans, and jewelers. So this is page 35 of the player handbook. It goes into a bit of detail about what you do when you come to a money changer and you want to, gold pieces is the standard currency for tallying experience points and recognizing the advancement of characters. So therefore, we need a mechanism to turn any coins. Now they call large sums of lower value coins can be changed to a smaller number of larger value coins, and vice versa, at a relatively small cost. typically 3% of the transaction. So it's going to cost us 3%. So say on 750 electrum pieces, 750 times 3% is 22.5 electrum pieces. So that is equivalent to 11 gold pieces. So it's not prohibitive, but it's still something to bear in mind, and it's a reduction because we only recognize net gold pieces that we extract. So you would have to take 11 off the 750. So instead of 750, 11 off the 375, because that's what it is in gold, we'd have equivalent of say 364, because it's about 11, wasn't it? That's what our net amount that we can add in to our pool for experience, and also what we actually have in physical gold pieces. But I thought that was quite interesting just to see what you can also get access to bankers will give loans, and they'll maybe you need some collateral. They have an interest rate. So here we have some feudal economics kicking in again. It's a bit like one of my earlier episodes where I was going through the economics of the Gygaxian economic system. Yes, we can have large loans. There's jewelers and gem merchants. So they'll buy and sell jewelry and gems. The buying price will usually be 20% under the actual value. So that's quite interesting to think, because I haven't found anywhere where it talks about selling magic items. And there's jewels taken as an example, and we've already got a 20% discount on the sales price. So maybe there's a mechanism that when we come to sell the potions, 20% is probably the expected reduction that Thudibert will want from the sales price that's currently being shown. So, for example, say our levitation, he'll want 20% reduction on that, and maybe what we can do is roll some form of reaction, which kind of calibrates the variation to that, and say we get a very poor reaction roll, that means that he's very firmly of the mind that he wants that as the minimum discount, and he may actually want some more discount. If we roll a very favorable reaction roll, obviously we'll have some situational modifiers too, we might whittle down that discount so that we might almost get face value for the potion, and we might come out with something closer to 400. It would be almost like a miracle if we do achieve the 400, but with a bit of skillful negotiation, and that would be worthwhile role playing out. That's a possibility. So that's in store for tomorrow. So that covers the sword. And also, when we come to Thudibert's Emporium, we're always talking about Thudibert, it'd be quite nice to flesh out his character, because he does sound like quite an interesting persona. I think I might have, I have said this before, I might have some constraints on how he develops when we roll the dice randomly. However, I'll go with the dice because it hasn't seemed to cause us any major issues, and it's, in fact, I would probably argue it's made things more interesting. So if we have something that's a bit awkward, it's actually made some of the outcomes quite interesting to deal with. You actually have to think on the spot, or if we don't come up with an adequate explanation there and then, the pace that I'm going at, I can come back and reflect on that and maybe put a different kind of spin on it, which becomes a bit more logical, and it seems to evolve into something that is quite understandable at the end point. So let's see. There's one of my fundamental rules was that if it contradicted anything that would be, it was kind of opposite to common sense, and it would just be nonsensical, you can ignore it. But I can't really think of many examples if any, where I've actually applied that. I think I might have done a couple when we were doing the random dungeon design, but that was more to do with the actual geography. So saying that we couldn't have great big trapezoidal rooms in a constrained space because we were coming to either the edge of the world or a physical limitation. But it seems like for all our kind of people interactions, for want of a better term, we've kind of just gone with the dice, and that's generated quite a lot of interesting dynamics. Okay. Now, I remember mentioning yesterday, we were talking about this gives us a chance to go through and experience downtime for the characters. Now, the major component of what we would classify as downtime is training, and I suppose another big thing would, say we'd had a lot of damage, we'd obviously have to heal, and that's a process in itself. But I had mentioned that I did have a list of the downtime activities, so I'm quite happy just to maybe go through my list just now, just to give you an idea of some of the areas that I would quite like to cover. And in fact, as I was thinking about this, there were a few others that I had put on based on some of the earlier videos. And I remember entertainment, under entertainment, remember we talked about things like jousting and tournaments. And not only just the things like card games and playing things in the inn and stuff, but I just thought of that just now. I should add that on, and I'll have to think of any other type of things. This is quite a significant list. It goes on for a bit, but and we've probably actually covered a few of them already. But maybe just to quickly rattle through this: purchase equipment, repair equipment, searching for a specialist. Specialist service. I've got a little mistake there. So, we've actually done some of that already. We haven't really had to have any repair. Now, repair equipment should be one of the services that are operated by the Green Dragon Inn, and also they'll replenish our clothing too. They'll say there's some of our tunics or maybe our trews or trousers have got snagging in them or tears. Fredegar's got staff on hand that can do the repairs. They'll also do all the kind of laundry for us as well, so we don't have to worry about anything like that. This is almost like a 5-star hotel, in medieval terms. We're paying such a massive amount of our adventure wealth. Yeah, you'd expect a fantastic service, and that's part, the peace of mind that the characters have. Not only have they got the ultimate, which is safety and protection, they've got it in a bit of style too. And it's also moving on to this second thing that we talked about just a while ago, recuperation and healing, which is a very serious consideration. If we've been fortunate up to now, we haven't had any negative interactions, and we've always been on top, or we've been reasonably fortunate, and we have not suffered any physical damage yet. But that will be a consideration if we do, and to have these facilities on hand. Who's to say that Fredegar doesn't also have maybe access to, because if you look at the actual map, the map of Marchton, put that one out. Right next to the Green Dragon Inn, which is here, we've got number 7, which is the Temple of Bane, with a chapel devoted to Alaron. So we're going to have some clerics here, right next door. Potentially Fredegar's got a relationship with them, and he can utilize some of their healing spells, or maybe there's potentially even like a paladin or something that can do the laying on of hands or something. So we could have access to the equivalent of having a private medical insurance right next to us. So that is something that's probably a nice thing to have in the back of our minds. If we can transport our wounded man, like never leave a man behind. That's going to be Dagobert's motto to the rest of the party. We'll always get all our troopers home. If once we have done that and achieved it, and Tristan, who is very strong, is carrying maybe one under each arm, we could have access to first class recuperation and healing. And we're not going to know that until we actually do it. And it's quite nice to maybe go through the mechanics. And who's to say that there's maybe not some little wrinkles that we can think about in the recuperation and healing. And that also covers some of the things that we were dealing with yesterday, which were things like the disease and the parasitic infections. Now we need access. If we are, say we've got a communicable disease, Fredegar's going to have to quarantine us, or one of the individuals, and so it's going to need special medical treatment. So that's something that we can look at if and when it arises. So I thought this would be a simple thing of going through this list, but it seems like I'm giving chapter and verse on every single one, and I'm thinking, well, this has almost generated a little mini game in itself: recuperation and healing. The next one is class-related activities. Now, that's a very open type of thing, but I'm thinking, not just the training and leveling up, which is the next thing, which is vitally important, but any other related activities. And I'm thinking maybe, I was talking about all these obligations that certain of the character classes have. Rangers have to protect their guardians. The paladins have to do good works. They have to lay on hands, maybe with the poor. Clerics have to do a day of observance. Maybe they have to do things during the week. There's all sorts of things. The clerics have a mission. Not just the clerics of Bane, but the clerics of Alaron. I've got Ithrix as well. These guys, they're not just there to go and plunder dungeons. They're there to spread the word, maintain the position of good against evil, defeat the enemies of the kingdom. I'm trying to think. Maybe when we go into some other of the classes, we can come to examples. If we don't really have a from initial kind of dealings with Marston, the only high-level thief that we have is Jasper just now, and he seems to have almost relinquished his more nefarious thieving aspect. So we don't really have, we haven't been exposed to what I would call a criminal underworld. But say there was a thieves guild here or an assassins guild, and I think we had an example when we were doing a kind of a simulated town generation, and we had a kind of thieves quarter, and it was up in, say, some hills, in caves near the thing. There could be some guild related business that your thief would have to do. It's that type of thing that's class related. And then obviously training and leveling up, and the Dungeon Master's Guide has a specific section on that, which is near the front from memory, I think, or is it? Where is the training? Was it a bit further on? Yeah, here we go. Experience points. Yeah, gaining experience levels. Now this is quite interesting because say the standard is that there's this little formula down here. Level of trainee character times 1500 equals the weekly cost during study and training. And it looks as though the week is the gold standard for doing training, and it's going to be 1500 times level. So first level is going to be 1500 cost to do a week's training, and that will get you at 1 level. However, there is this little caveat to this. It's not all plain sailing if you deviate from your class. Now, in a solo campaign, how can we represent something like deviation? And I've been trying to think about that. And I'm thinking, well, maybe what I need to do is generate some sort of mechanic that that we can just note at certain points whether say, Dagobert or Tristan or Lindris are adhering to their class strictures and expectations. And take for example, remember the skeletons, and we had the jump on the skeletons, and we decided based on Dagobert himself, he said charge, but he was a cleric, and he did not really show his clerical training, which were the priority of which would be turning undead. So is that a contravention of his clerical rules? And would we note it down? That could be so that as I say, the gold standard is excellent, few deviations from the norm. So a few deviations mean that you can maybe have some minor wobbles. So generally the characters would probably always be a 1, but superior, deviations minimal but noted. Maybe that would be it's a minimal deviation. The leader of his order could say, come on, Dagobert, I've heard, I don't know how he would hear, but say he's divinely, his deity, Bane has moaned away to the leader of the order and saying, one of your clerics he's gone in and whacked them with a mace when he should really be turning them. But I would actually probably argue that Bane would be quite chuffed with that, because he does sound like quite a kind of aggressive sort of guy. You might actually prefer the kind of bashing a skeleton over the head with a mace rather than doing all the kind of hocus pocus wave turning stuff. But you get my point. There could be a chance that we could mark them down. So it's worthwhile maybe think something like say you have a blatant contravention that say Lindris never ever casts a magic spell, for example, and he ignores all of his magic user side. We would probably say that that's a deviation. He could be a fantastic fighter, but he's not living up to his multi-class persona. Okay, I've got some stuff to do on the training. I've got to calculate all the experience points, and I did mention this yesterday. I'd quite like to present a position where I can show you where the characters are if you divide it all up, and what they need to do to achieve their levels. We do have a bit of a complication because 2 of our characters are multi-class, so it's effectively as if we've got 5 characters on the go, because we've got to go up 5 different levels, and it does mean that for Lindris and Tristan, they dilute a lot of their pool. They can't just put 1 against, say, fighter and ignore. They have to divide it equally. But it would be interesting just to see how far they've gone. If we take the say Dagobert, who's the easiest, let's see how many experience points he would need to get to his next level. So if we look at the cleric, he needs 1500 to get to adept level 2. So if we're already saying that we've got about over 1,000 for potions, and divide that by 3, we'd already had 500. So we were not getting too far. Maybe either between half of 3/4 of the way there for Dagobert. So with a bit more push and see what we can squeeze out of anything else, we might be able to get Dagobert up to 1st level. It'd be a slightly different story for Tristan and Lindris to have who, I remember what it was like. I had the cleric fighter magic user, and my goodness, it did take a long time to get him up. And I think I got him up to, sixth level fighter and fifth level cleric and fifth level magic. It was that kind of thing, but it really took a lot of effort to do that. Okay, I think I've talked about that a wee bit enough for today. One of the other downtime activities that we can look into is learning a language. Now, we haven't really done too much on the languages just now because we haven't actually had an interface, an interaction with an intelligent non-human. It's always been humans or half-elves or demi-humans, and any of the monsters that we've come across have either been unintelligent, the skeletons couldn't talk, the spider couldn't talk, the sturges couldn't talk. I know I made them talk internally and in their own little talking language, but the characters wouldn't know how to talk to them. So we haven't really had, like, say, a goblin. We haven't had a need to do any communication between our two parties. And like Lindros hasn't had to use his comprehend language spell yet. But I would quite like to maybe push the language thing to higher priority. I like it, say, with the encumbrance, I like all that stuff, the limiting factor. And maybe just while we're actually on encumbrance, I know I don't know whether I glossed over the fact that we had to carry these 750 electrum pieces out, but even if I did, I think I was generally comfortable that even if we added 750 onto Tristan, he would still I think he was on about 1,000. I think he's still, I forgot what Tristan was on. Yeah, he's got 1,000 already. He could go up to 1950. So Tristan could carry a lot. And I think even things like Dagobert had a bit of capacity up to 800. So, I was reasonably comfortable about 750. And the potions, they hardly weigh a thing. They're small bottles of liquid. And even the fire beetle stuff, they weren't really too heavy either. So I just wanted to maybe just clarify that in case you thought, oh, Brian, you didn't really, you're always going on about you've got to be quite detailed about things and make sure the encumbrance is important. I think I was quite relaxed about that, and for once I actually just went ahead with it and didn't go into the nth level of detail on it. The next thing I've got as downtime activity is researching items. Now that's probably what we're doing with these. That's what we're going to do tomorrow with the sword and the potion of longevity. Another one, obtaining information, rumors, looking for employment, and I've got a 1 in 6 check daily. Now I think. I use that with discretion, but I'm going to explain as part of this downtime phase back in Marchton how this what I would call my churn mechanic and in setting maintenance operates, and that generates things like rumors and employment. Primarily through the Patron. So I'm going to use a Patron system similar to Traveller, but they're obviously not going to be corporate liaison officers or anything like that. These are going to be your classic trope fantasy, men in pointy hats and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be those type of individuals who are the patrons and have maybe a mission. And at the end of this, when I'm through this, I'll show you just how the missions are generated. So the other thing is carousing and gambling. Remember we talked about that in an earlier episode when we were talking about the entertainment in the inn. We could go back and do that. We've got some board games we can do. Crafting magical, non-magical items, we're probably not going to be doing much of that just now, because that's maybe something we do further down the line. Religious service, holy days, religious observance. I touched on that the other day. That would be things like Dagobert having to spend quite a bit of his Sunday performing ceremonies or attending religious events and observing the Day of Bane. The next one, scribing a spell scroll. Again, we're not really going to be doing that much of that just now. Selling magic items, converting treasure. Bingo. That's what we're doing, and we're right in the middle of that. You could almost, I could probably order this a bit better into the kind of groupings, but this is really just like a kind of shopping list of all the downtown activities. The recruitment of hirelings and henchmen. Now, we discussed that when we were talking about whether we could have mercenaries down into the dungeon, but we thought against that. And if we're also talking about recruitment of other player characters, so that kind of comes into that sort of sphere. So in the Green Dragon this evening, we may maybe have an opportunity to deal with the other PCs, the other non-player characters in Party B, and see whether we can, through a random mechanism, whether we can have any interactions with some of them, and maybe change the overall dynamic on that party. We've obviously come back, and probably the rumours are starting to spread through the Green Dragon that a successful group of adventurers have returned, and they're loaded with what appears to be various forms of treasure. Maybe it's not so visible, but we do seem like the cats that have got the cream type thing. We've got this kind of very visible, and this I remember. In fact, I've got to highlight this. I did. I don't know why I keep doing this. Every time I want to say kudos, I was talking about them going across the market square, and I said they had credos. Now, I think it's just because I keep saying that. It's because I want them to say, they've got credibility. And for some reason, instead of kudos, I keep on saying credos. And I must almost hear myself saying it, and I don't correct myself. And I think I'm probably going to say it so much that it's going to become, I'm actually going to will it in as a word. It does sound, I think, credos, kudos, it's not, but it should be kudos. And credos, it almost sounds a bit like, as if you had an aftershave or something. It's kind of got that sound. But I'm going to try to keep to kudos, because there's nothing worse than someone, I've done it with the coup d'etat, when it should have been coup de grace. You think you sound smart, you're using a different kind of language, and you're just making a bit of a fool of yourself. Okay, we're almost there on the downtime activities list. So I've got, when performing activities in settlements which don't involve moving around within or engaging with occupants of the settlement, there is no need to check for a potential encounter. So I think that was just the general override, that we only check for encounters when we're moving around in the settlement. So we had this mechanic that we could generate the zones of the town, and these took turns to move between. So that, say I wanted to get to the tannery, I would, from the Green Dragon Inn, it would take me 1, 2 to get there, the buy zone. So that's 2 turns, and then every 3 turns we have an encounter roll. But when I'm performing all my downtime activities, say I'm in a shop haggling with Thudibert, I'm not clocking up the mileage for the encounter check. It's only when I'm out and about. So if I come back out of the tanneries after spending maybe a couple of hours there and having a discussion, maybe I've gone to visit Tristan's old father or something, he's working away. If I move back out here, that's when we start tallying for the encounter again, and we would have an encounter check when we get back in there. So that's how that works. And then obviously we talked about the entertainment and stuff like that. Okay. The one last thing I want to talk about today is the interesting aspect of how we, we've had our initial dungeon delve, and we've been down the Lost Palace 3 times, and we've got results. But what now? What where do we go from here? You could say, Brian, you've gone through all these steps. What's the next plan? Well, I think this is part and parcel of this churn mechanic that I'm going to show you. That kind of, it sets up a week in the life of the Green Dragon, and call it, and it has all the different activities that go on. And the important thing is it talks about who's coming, who's leaving, is there any events going on, and then remember we have this other factor called, what I've called threads, and one of the threads that we had was Halas was the investigator, was here for the trial of the captain of the guard, or the watch, because of some grievance that he had done, and he was doing a roll for Seaward. So I would call that a thread. So what this mechanic does is it charts out what all these things are over the week, and we slot them into days. So when we come to a day, we don't have to scratch our head and think, oh no, what am I going to do today? It's just there, and we resolve that mechanic. So it's almost like a kind of an aid for the solo role player to do that. One of the aspects of that mechanic is the adventure. Now the adventure comes from the Patron. So I've got these guidelines which I call adventure generator. And if I just run through this quickly, it's not going to take too long just to go through these couple of pages. Goes on to about here. And this is, to me, this is quite interesting, because this is all about dungeons and finding out about places of mystery, and kind of almost like designing the initial hook that gets you out there, and also the backstory to the person that's there, the man in the pointy hat, and all that kind of mystery, and that's where this little mechanic does all its kind of magic. It's got this little book of spells, and it's got a cauldron there, and you're putting in all your ingredients, and it bubbles up, and bang, out comes this adventure, metaphorically. So whenever there is a patron appearance generated in the starting inn or in a specified home settlement location, so say we have the starting inn, maybe if we go to Seaward's Keep, that might be a specified home settlement location. So that's something that I can add in, but we're just going to stick to the Green Dragon Inn just now. It says, seed an adventure thread in the form of a mission or quest using the following tables. Okay, good. In the majority of cases, a mission will require a place of mystery to be determined, and or further details about the individuals or objects involved. Okay. So that's what we're saying, that in the majority of cases, a mission is probably going to need a place of mystery, and also potentially further details about the individuals or the objects involved. And this will become clearer when we go through the missions. The missions descriptions are purposely left open for further interpretation and development. Good. So we have to take our time with it and think about it as we come across this mechanic. It's not going to just go bang, bang, bang and provide you with, it's this dungeon and it's 200 miles over there and it's had this such and such and bang, bang. All this kind of information, almost like a computer printout. It's going to require a bit of crafting in our heads, a bit like what we did with the Lost Palace of Dunmorna. All the stuff with the volcano and Callistra, and that didn't just happen. We had to think about that and kind of fit it to the circumstances. And this is kind of what the mechanic's going to try and do as well. Ask fundamental questions such as what, who, where, when, and why to expand the adventure theme and see what exciting connections emerge. It sounds like a bit of an advert. What and you will get an exciting adventure theme and connections. But in a kind of sort of jaunty sort of way, that's saying, just let's just tease things out and ask a few questions. These five fundamental questions are great at discerning. If you want to be analytical about things, teasing out things. And that's one of the things I really like, is all the connectivity between things. And maybe talking about traveler, say traveler world design, that's a big part of that. And when I do my classic traveler sessions, when it comes to world design, I really like looking at the hydrophonic percentage and comparing it to the atmosphere. And if it looks a bit kind of strange, well, why is it strange? You've got to ask questions about that. And by asking that, you can come up with all sorts of interesting ideas. So this is a kind of idea cauldron that's bubbling away, and we're hoping to get some, scoop off the top of the broth and savor it. This is also a good opportunity to weave in any of our existing setting threads we have already logged in our threads pool. So we'll have a threads pool, which is things like Hallis's, the chaotic good subsect, the fact that we've got Roger's roughnecks. I was going to go redneck roughnecks. All these are the threads, and maybe we can start weaving some of them into this as well. Just quickly to go through the missions. Now we'd have a mission. The first one, we roll a d6 for the mission, so it's randomly generated. Everything in this is going to be randomly generated, and then we do our interpretation. And it's only a few random generations that we do, but just by the combination of them all, we should have some interesting outcomes. The first one is retrieve an artifact or item, rescue someone, escort someone or something. Now, because we've got someones and something or something, we have to determine what they are. And we usually use the random tables, encounter tables. And I'll just interpret them as and when. So I'll probably do 1 to 3 as that. 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. And then randomly determine. You get to see how that works. 2, destroy a magical threat, contain a physical threat. What's contain a physical threat? Let's find out. Do we? Maybe there's something's going to flood. There's someone's rediverting one of our rivers or something, and it's causing some problem. Maybe something like it's drying up. Our water supply is gone, so we've got to go out and do something about it. I'm just off the top of my head. Magical threat might be some sorcery that's affecting, say an evil spell's being cast on the old forest and it's starting to do the Mirkwood thing. That's a magical threat. It's that kind of stuff. 3rd, clear out an abandoned area, go on a crusade to further the mission. Okay, so that sounds like a military type style mission. 4 is your I suppose your vanilla what Dungeoneers do, treasure hunt, dungeon delve. So I think it's important to have that in the list all the time, because that's kind of what we did with the Lost Palace of Dunmorna. It was a treasure hunt, dungeon delve, but hey, we had a lot of fun doing it, and I think that's the bread and butter of Dungeons and Dragons. And the thing about that is what we do is we spice it up and make it more tantalizing by all the kind of additional bling that we can do, all the nuances and the individuality we can stamp on that particular adventure. The next one is explore an area or place of interest, scout out a monster lair. Okay, so that's going to be, say we want to go into one of the adjacent hexes. Say Seward, who is our patron, has said, Dagobert and your party, I want these mountains explored, and I want to find out what are in the first 2 or 3 miles It hasn't been explored before, and I want you guys to do it. You can have whatever treasure you find, but just bring me back information and a map. That's that type of thing. The sixth one, discover the origin of a supernatural occurrence, acquire information about location. So that's kind of more reconnaissance scouting. Say like a magic user said, I want to find out whether there's a tower 20 leagues to the south, and it has it's made of a certain type of material, that type of thing. It's this obsidian thing that I had as a tower before. He's interested in that. Can you go and find out for me? Obviously, it could be anything else, but it's that kind of style. And then we have the patron that we generate. Now the patron will be generated through the mechanic that we have for the churn. And that will be one of the, say the arrivals that we have. One of those, there's a chance that we will get a patron, and he'll be an important NPC that we can interact with. But this gives an idea of the different types of patrons we have. So we have your classic adventurer, the ruler, that would be Lord Seaward or one of his lieutenants, a soldier, a mercenary, priest, cleric, sage, magic user, merchant, foreigner, exile, fugitive, so we can have a bit of fun with that if we come up, with an interesting backstory, a nobleman, and our favourite, the official, because boy have we had a lot of fun with the official. I never thought, probably what I would have thought was one of the most boring ones on that list has generated our killer subtable, the official subtable, which everyone shakes when they hear about, oh no, not the official subtable, we're going to get the tax collector this time. It's that kind of thing. Now, actually, on the place of mystery and its design, I have this table. I think I showed you this table before, and it was to do with when we were generating the Lost Palace of Dunmorna. I had that high level roll, and you could either use the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Caves and Caverns bit for the maps in the Dungeon Master's Guide, so they were all routed. But if you got 71 plus, you could roll on my table. So I call this my master table. And if we need a physical location, we use the master table. So roll a location to establish what the place of mystery actually is. Roll 1d4 descriptions to generate some atmosphere and mystery. Hey, that's exactly what we want. So say we rolled a 19, we got a monolith, and then we roll an 8, contested. So we'd roll a d4 and we got, say, 2. So we've got contested and then mystical. I've got to think, oh my goodness, what does all this mean? We jot it all down, the brain starts working. Within 10 minutes, I can guarantee you we'll have something that is of interest. If we can't, we're not playing. We haven't got the imagination to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And then roll a theme if appropriate to the mission. And the themes, remember I was going through this a long time ago, and we had some real horrors like demonic leader and host, humanoid savages, a giant stronghold, evil military order. My goodness, wouldn't that be quite... But I have a consideration thereafter that I don't want suddenly this amazingly, almost like having Sauron on your doorstep in Dol Guldur, the Necromancer. I thought I would have our favorite mechanic on a scale of 1 to 10. So I could say the level of threat this poses on a scale of 1 to 10 is blah. So if we had demonic leader and host and it was a 1, maybe that would just mean that it could even be the case where it was historically the site of some demonic leader and host, but there's no one left there. They're gone, or it's maybe left some tiny residue, maybe a curse or something. So that, whereas if we got a 10, you've got full on Sauron, or we've got a demon of repute. And then we would have the location of the area. It's probably going to be it's going to be 1d3 hexes away in a random direction, with 1d6 hex faces clockwise. The roll can be influenced by the nature of the thread emerging, so it doesn't need to be an arbitrary roll and can be weighted. For example, say it should be, you wanted it limit to a northern mountain hex. We could put some constraints in. Okay, I don't want to dazzle you with any more science, but that was to give you in a nutshell how I plan to move forward, and that there is a progress to the ongoing adventures of Dagobert, Tristan and Lindris, and beyond the Lost Palace of Dunmorna. And of course, they can go back to that at any stage, and there is areas of the palace that they haven't explored. And who's to say that it doesn't have more levels, because we haven't even done that. We haven't exhausted that palace. It still has potentially more secrets to uncover. But what I wanted to do was just to go through all the different downtime options, tell you what the strategy of the characters were for tonight and for the next morning on the Saturday to go to Thudibert, and also just what all the different adventures that we will be able to generate through my in-churn mechanic. Okay, well, thanks for watching and having the patience and going through all these lists. I will see you next time. Okay, thank you.